Hey, I am so glad that you clicked on this link to watch this video. This video is titled Cursing Without Guilt. And there are several kinds of spells that I have performed in the past. And most of my spells were based on protection. And then also, filling my home with prosperity symbols. And this is something I've, done pretty much my entire life. I am someone who prefers not to focus on negative things, but we also have to realize, like, in this platform that we live in, that I refer to as hell, okay, there is predator and there is prey. And there are times where we have to protect ourselves. I think I've made it very clear, and not just me, there's a lot of people who are living proof that the law does not always work in our favor. There's many reasons why. Sometimes they're ignorant themselves or they're influenced by outside forces. And unfortunately, many people have to take it upon themselves to protect themselves. And this can be done in many ways. Some people get gun permits so that if somebody steps inside their home, they have the right to protect their families, okay? And, there's people such as myself, like, I'm a woman, really, okay, seriously, and I live pretty much by myself. Yes, my son does live here, okay, but there were times where my son wasn't living here with me. So I was all by myself, okay? So, there's been times where, I remember contacting the law enforcement because somebody was sitting on my porch one night, right? And it took them a long time to get to my house, okay? So we don't always have the protection that we need. And hopefully in my new project, the Moral Reset, I am encouraging law enforcement to be more proactive and responsive and, resisting things, participation and things like human trafficking. But going back to the reason why there are times where we have to perform curses is for our own protection. It is not something that you should ever do because you want to be in a part of a competition. I will tell you, when you are working with divine forces, if you are in some sort of confrontation, you best believe that you must not be responsible for any of it. Meaning you must be guilty not, you have to be innocent, 100% innocent in the issue, okay? The reason why is because you've heard of spells reversing back on people. You've heard of these sort of things, okay? And the reason why is because they were not in the proper position to cast that spell in the first place. Why? Because they were just as guilty. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we are dealing with divine forces, is what I'm saying, okay? So destruction or removal spells can pretty much be done during the waning or the waxing of the moon, and it depends on how you see the expulsion. For example, I want to give the first spell that I'm going to teach is called a hot foot spell, okay? And there are times when we have to remove people, not because we don't like them, okay? It's just because it may not be a harmonious union. Okay, and I'll give you an example. For example, there's a woman, and she is her niece is a college student, so she decides to rent a room with her aunt, and her aunt is really happy about it at first, but the girl is becoming more of a stress. A thing of stress. She invites her friends over all the time, even during hours when it's not appropriate to bring them, and she creates messes and she doesn't clean up. She uses things or invades other people's in the house privacy, just things that would create conflict within the home, and she has been told about it several times. But the aunt and the niece both have a love for each other. They just are not compatible roommates, okay? So in this case, it's not her putting a curse on her to harm her. It's kind of like putting the wheels in motion for them to part peacefully, okay? Because there's still love there, okay? So in this case, it's a removal spell, but it's not done to because these people are enemies. It's the fact that this girl needs to move on to her destination, and this lady needs to keep hers, and she needs to keep the peace. So in this case, hot foot spells can be performed on people that you love, and then it can also be performed on people that is your enemy. Okay. Now, what else do I want to say? Ideal to visualize peaceful partings. Okay, yeah, so it's ideal to visualize peaceful partings if possible. However, there are times when, evil can't be handled in any other way but to curse them. And I think, everybody knows what happened with me, right? So, for information on timing of spell casting, I have done this video before. It is called the Divine Timetables. I will put the link in the description box. And it is important to only perform death spells if you are innocent in the argument. I am going to emphasize this. Okay, it is important that you only perform death spells if you are innocent in the argument. Do you understand? Okay, and it's the reason why I'm saying this is because, like a lot of people love to study black magic. This is one of the things that I think a lot of draws a lot of teenagers into it, and so much so that people have become, they don't quite understand the occult because so many people are focused on like dark magic. Okay, and so with dark magic comes even more study of things like, grimoires that relate to evil, wicked, blah, 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 blah. And it can get very, very dark. I think a lot of people know that. Okay. But some people like love this kind of stuff. This is what and they keep thinking about using these sort of spells in the sense of competition. Oh, I'm pretty sure, because I've seen some YouTube videos about me, right? Because I tend to be very talk about a lot on YouTube. And they'll talk about how there are people who have performed spells against me and whatever. And the reason why they bounce and ding right off me is because I'm innocent in it. And I know I'm innocent in it. And I keep up my walls of protection, okay, spiritually. So in my case, I'm a victim of lifelong targeting. And obviously, I'm innocent. And by the universal forces, I am innocent and free, and by the universal forces, I am able to remove anyone that I see fit without guilt. Okay, that is by divine law. Okay, I can cast benedictions and I can create maledictions. This is a part of my spiritual power. Okay, and yes, it can be a part of your prayer as well. Okay, but like I said, you better be innocent in it. That's just what it is. Okay, this is why I'm making these videos. Okay, so what am I presenting in this video are a few spells that may help you. And if you are also fighting a spiritual battle, please feel free to use it against evil. I'm going to describe what you'll need for the hot foot spell. The purpose of the hot foot spell is to get rid of someone without harm to them. Okay, the best time to perform this, like I said, when it comes to expelling someone, there are times where it seems like, the waxing or waning of the moon is appropriate. But for this particular spell, I'm going to say the best time would be the waning moon specifically. Okay, and it is best to perform the mixture of this creation outside, but in this case, in this example, I'm going to be doing it here in my bedroom. Now, while you're doing this, you can burn incense, but the incense is not really going to be a part of the spell. It's kind of in the background, as well as you can also listen to some esoteric music or music that, really gets you going. That could vary from person to person. I like a lot of the like, what do you call it, synthesizer tones, because depending on what it's for, okay. But if I'm like in the mood to like literally get in touch with my anger, certain kinds of music is more appropriate. It might be some sort of chant music. It could be some people, like a lot of men, like heavy metal music. I'm using this as an example because it does have a kind of an angry sound to it. Whatever it is, whatever kind of atmosphere you want to create to put you in the mood for getting rid of a person. And like I said, getting rid of a person could be done with love, and it can also be done with hate. Okay, so the items that you're going to need for this is you're going to need a piece of paper. Select the ideal color. You can use regular white paper, but like in the case that I gave in the example of the niece and the aunt that were moved in together, and they were having regrets because they didn't see eye to eye. There's still love for one another. They still wish each other well. In this case, the aunt might want to use a piece of paper that's ideal for her expression of her affection for this person. So let's just say she wants to have a peaceful party, and she's going to choose pink, okay, because she, has an emotional tie and love for her niece, okay. A name paper is best, okay. A name paper is like, for example, the aunt received the signature of her niece. Like, for example, maybe her niece signed something and her aunt uses that signature, her signature from her niece, in this spell. Okay. And I would say name papers or things that are considered to be personal concerns, things that are directly connected to that person, be it locks of their hair, their fingernails, whatever. Okay, that is like a direct connection if you can obtain those sort of things. But a name paper can be written by, you can write that person's name yourself if you're really focused on them. But it's even better if you have a name paper, something that they sign themselves, okay? Now, number 2, you'll need pencils, pens, markers, etc. However you want to write on this. You might just want to write a sentence on it. In the case of the aunt and the niece, she might want to send her away in a very happy situation. So she could draw her niece, a picture of her niece with little hearts and rainbows and being happy. So it could be a peaceful party. You see what I'm saying? Or if it's somebody who's like an asshole, you can draw whatever, or you might design the name in a weird way or whatever. You know what I mean? It depends on how you're using your creativity to express how you wish to remove this person, whether it be beautiful or it be sort of rather destructive or whatever. Okay, number 3, you'll need hot pepper flakes, black pepper, or some other repelling herb. Okay. Number 4, a mortar and pestle, I'm going to say, is optional. Okay, but you'll see how this works when I do the demonstration a little bit more. You'll also need a burning receptacle. If you, like I said, this spell would be better to be done outside while you create this mixture because of the smoke of the burning of the paper. But, in this case, and I hope that doesn't set my alarm off. Okay, maybe I won't be able to do all of that, but there's not going to be any flames, which is going to be kind of disappointing. I know it is. But I don't think I'm going to be able to set this paper on fire. But I think you'll get the message, or you'll understand anyway without me doing that. And you'll also need a pair of your the person's shoes. Okay, I was going to call this the enemy's shoes, but in the case of the aunt and the niece, they're not necessarily enemies. They're just not compatible. Okay, and they don't wish each other harm. They just want to go their separate ways. Okay, but number 6 is I'm referring to the enemy as someone you want to remove. Okay, not because in this case it's actually an enemy. All right, here we go. Okay, so in this demonstration, I had mentioned that you need a piece of paper, and that could be any kind of paper. And in this case, I'm giving you an example of a peaceful parting of a niece and her aunt, right? So the aunt is performing the spell, and she wants her niece to move on to a life that is more compatible to her way of living, okay? Because the aunt has, children that she's raising herself, and she has to maintain her home in a special way, which makes sense, okay? There's guidelines that the kids have to follow. And unfortunately, because this person is an adult and she's got more flexibility, it's creating a little bit more tension in the home. But they want to, they care about each other, but she just has to go, okay? So anyway, the aunt chooses to use a heart-shaped paper, right? Because she cares about her. It could also be a small type piece of paper or a big piece of paper, depending on what it is. Like, I do recommend that this spell be performed outside. So, I know in the past, I used to go out and use my barbecue grill. And that's pretty much what I use my barbecue grill for. Every once in a while, I would throw a skate steak on there. But pretty much for me, my barbecue grill usually worked for getting rid of people. just to tell you the truth. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So in this case, she uses the a heart shaped paper. So, and also I had mentioned, you get something to write with. It could be pencil, it could be whatever. I like making use of color because it in ways you can use the pen that you're using as a form of magic as you're concentrating and using the color to express what it is that you want or whatever, and using color symbolism in the intention. Okay, so in this case, she writes, leave with love and light. Let's just call her niece's name Betty. I don't know. I can't think of anything. Betty. Now, if she had a name paper of Betty's, right? Betty she could somehow maybe glue the name on here on this paper or whatever, or she could take the entire paper, right, and then just write the leave with love and light somewhere around the paper. Okay, but she at least has her real link to link of this person's signature. Okay. There's times where you have to rely on a lot of your visualization in magic, okay? Because in this case, she doesn't really have anything personal of this person's. Now, if she had locks of her hair or something like that, I typically don't use personal concerns of people unless I really, really, really want to stomp their ass out. You know what I mean? But so, but personal concerns could be, like I said, shavings of their hair, pieces of their hair that's broken off, or can get collected at a barber shop, or some of that collected in their razors. It can also, another personal concern could be their fingernails. It could be their menstrual blood. It could be all kinds of things, okay, that is directly connected to them. In this case, okay, going back to the name paper, because we are doing this demonstration. So she writes positive things on there, right? It's because she wants, and then she could also, she could, do little hearts, happy faces, rainbows, whatever. And she can use all the different colors because I have a bunch of different color pens, really, to express the happy things that she wants her niece, Betty, to move on to. Okay. And it's going to maintain the peace in her home. So they have this peaceful party. And of course, she plans to see Betty in the future. She just can't live with her. That's just how it is, okay? So now she has her paper, right? And now she's going to get some of these flakes, right? She has these. You can use either paper flakes. You can use like chili powder. You can use black pepper. These, or you can use them all together. Or if you just want to use one, whatever, that's fine too. But what's important is that you do enchant them. Okay. And so in this case, like this is a little tricky. It's a little bit of a black pepper. I don't think you need to see all of this, but I'm just kind of sprinkling it in my palm of my hand and mixing them all together. Okay. Now, however you enchant it, that's your choice. I mean, there's different ways you can do it, but I'm going to show you how I do it. Now, I take advantage of sunlight. I refuel with sun like all the time. Like I take it into my head. I reach out my hand and then I like charge and then I recharge items, you know what I mean, using sunlight. Okay, in this case, I'm using these herbs, right? And I'm just going to point at them and enchant them and tell them what to do. They know what they're meant to do. These herbs are, or yeah, I'm going to call them herbs, okay? These are herbs that are usually referred to as removal, banishing, whatever, okay? So I'm focusing on them and then I'm kind of grasping them in my hand, okay? This is my receiving hand and this is my power hand. This is the reason why I'm pointing at them in, what do you call it, enchanting them, infusing them, raising their vibration, okay? And then I'm going to sprinkle it into the receptacle that is holding the paper, okay? And now I'm going to light it on fire, okay? And because this is small, there's like a little smoke detector thing here, so I'm just going to be really careful, but because I really want to, I'm kind of a pyromaniac myself, okay? But anyway, I want to see it. So you're going to need a lighter too, and I will go ahead and add that to the list that I'm putting on the screen, and make sure you take notes. Now, also your lighter sometimes is cool when that has a color significance as well. And I had talked about your altar setup. in one of my videos before. So I'm assuming that you're a little familiar with this little rigmarole. So anyway, and you don't really even have to say anything if you don't want to. Now, some people will. Like, depends if it's a peaceful one, whether it's peaceful parting or a negative one. You can pray over it as it burns. Okay, mind you, this is a very small piece of paper, so make it quick, right? So I'm going to go ahead and light it up, and I'm basically concentrating in my mind. Like, I'm basically saying, hey, I want this to, peaceful parting, watching it. It should burn out all the way. Okay. And when it burns all the way, it's better that way because it's easier. And also, to me, I also look at it as a form of symbolism too, because sometimes there might be stagnicity. If it's slow to burn, there could be some sort of resistance or whatever. In this case, it took me 2 times to get this whole thing lit. I personally think it's because this spell is bullshit. I don't have a niece named Betty. Okay. So I don't really think the universal forces is really like onto this. This is just an example is what it is. Okay. So, there's going to be ashes, and see, this really didn't light very well, but it's ideal to pay attention to how the paper burns. I think it is. Okay. So assuming that this is burned well, okay, meaning like there are no cute little pink edges and stuff like that. Hang on a second. There are no cute little pink edges of the heart, or there's no, it's like, that gray color, like you can see right here. Like the majority of it's gray. You can see that it's just burnt, right? If you, this is optional. This is a part of the mortal and pestle. You can throw all of this, transfer it into the mortal and pestle, right? And crush it like this. You know what I mean? And as you're crushing it, you can be visualizing, the peaceful parting, how she's going to be making her friends. You can sing it. You can make all kinds of, do anything that's creative that comes to your mind. You are adding energy into it. You know what I mean? And because this is peaceful, you can visualize one of her favorite songs, you know what I mean, that you like yourself or whatever, and visualize her meeting the right people, having the kind of life she wants, this sort of thing, and you're crushing it up. Now, once it gets small to like this really grainy, sandy look, okay, this is the amount that you're also going to need a receptacle to put it in, okay? Because I would say this is about a palm, enough, a palmful, I guess, handful. That's about the amount of it. Anyway, once she's not paying any attention, or he's not paying any attention, you just slip a little bit amount in their shoes. Now, there's going to be more. You want to make it so that this person's not going to notice that it's in their shoe. Okay, so just go light on that. Chances are this girl has other pairs of shoes that you're going to distribute this ash in. You can also throw some of it under the bed that she sleeps in, or he sleeps in, or whatever, but you want to make sure you get rid of all of this. And after that, it's done. Okay, that's the hot foot spell. Okay, pretty easy to do. Okay, you don't have to pray to any particular deity. It's all in your head. You can whisper, you can do whatever, but it's very simple, and that's exactly what I want it to be. So let's move on to the next spell. Okay, just to kind of summarize the hot foot spell, I did want to add that, you might want to put the mixture in a jar before you actually distribute it, okay? Whether that be in their shoes, one pair of shoes, or their entire shoe collection, or whatever. And then also, that the mixture that you have, if they have like maybe 3 pairs of shoes and you still have mixture, you can also throw the mixture under the bed. This spell is for destroying the livelihood of your enemy. Now, this is an actual spell that could be performed against an enemy specifically. And once again, this is the kind of spell that you want to perform if you are 100% innocent in this so-called argument, right? Okay, so the purpose, of course, is to destroy a person's well-being and their livelihood. The timing of this spell, it could be either waning or waxing. I do recall doing this spell several times many years ago, and doing it both times, during the waxing and the waning of the moon. It is best to perform this outside, away from home. And the items that you'll need either a ceramic or a glass plate to represent reality. And you can select the ideal color, and I will show you some examples in the next slide. Number 2, you will use a picture of your enemy or a name paper written by them. Now that is optional because, you know, when you're performing magic on another person, it is best to have a personal concern. And let me review what a personal concern is. It is something that is directly belongs to them. It could be maybe a sliver of their favorite pair of underwear that they have, and you just took like a small piece of it. It could be a slice of a piece of pieces of their hair. It could be their finger or toenails. It could be their saliva. It could be their semen. It could be their menstrual blood. You, whatever it is, comes from them, was on them, or whatever. Something that directly connects them. Now, because of I don't have, like, you know, anybody that I'm focusing on right now. I do not have any name papers or anything like that, but they can be used, okay? Those are options. In this example, I am showing how to use it just with mental work, okay? And then in this case, you'll be either writing the person's name and the things that you want to happen to their life with either a pencil, pens, markers, etc., or paint or whatever, okay? Now, here are a few different examples that I pulled randomly off the internet for examples of, you know, what their reality looks like. Okay, and see, in my mind, I'm using a representation of the world. Okay, meaning specifically their world. Okay, and when it comes to doing cursing spells, you know, I usually find a plate and purchase a plate, a single plate. So the things like the Dollar Tree are ideal when you want to do something like this. Now, because you are destroying their world, there's you know, of course, other ways to acquire a plate. Let's just say, for example, your enemy gave you a plate. Now, I don't know why they would only give you one plate, okay? But you know, what if they did somehow, or it was once theirs, and then somehow you obtained it, you know, maybe they gave it to you or whatever, or it was, you know, you obviously should never steal anything that doesn't belong to you, but I'm just saying is, you know, you just need one plate, okay? And in my case, when I think of somebody's reality, I usually get something that represents the sky. You might see their world as blue and white, and you might see it as brown too, because you're thinking about what's on the earth, what's in the sky, or whatever. I just focus primarily on, you know, the sky, okay? So in this case, you know, the biggest picture here is just like a blue plate. It looks a lot like the sky. Now, on the other side, you see these 4 plates right here. You could, in your mind, you're using things to connect, you know, to represent certain things. So in this case, well, you would only be using one of these plates out of these 4. But I do like the fact that it marks the different directional points. Like, you know, you see they have some things that pointing to the east, south, the east, the south, the west, the north. You could use that as a representation. You want to, you know, visualize something as, you know, realistic as you can, and it should symbolize something as realistic as you can. Okay. Now this one here on the bottom, you know, it kind of looks like water and sky, whatever. However you visualize it is great. And then of course you have to think about the availability. Okay, since you're probably going to purchase a plate like this at like the dollar store, you have to, you know, pretty much get whatever is available to you. And I don't recommend spending a lot of money for, you know, a plate for that you're going to destroy in a spell. So let me go to the next slide. Now, using this plate as an example, what you're going to do is you're going to take your pen, your markers, or paint or whatever, and you're going to write a bunch of like negative things relating to the main things that are important in your enemy's life, such as, you know, in this case, I wrote career destroyed, loss of friends and family, reputation destroyed, money is all gone, and love cannot exist. Now, if you'll notice, I guess I'll circle it. What I did was I removed the vowels, and I made a very basic sigil of the name of the person that I want to destroy, right? This is just an example, okay? And so, you know, you don't have to destroy this plate right away. It's up to you. Now, and this part of the plate creation can be done outside. It's the destruction of the plate that should be done outside. Okay. Now, I've dealt with this or I've used this several times. There's been times where I've created the plate and just kind of wrapped it up and then wait to destroy it until another time. That's more convenient because I might have had plans to go out to like a park areas to where I can just smash it against the tree or whatever. Okay. Like I said, I would say, what, I'm going to go ahead and put on the next slide, as far as when's the best time to do this, as far as the day. Okay. You can do these kind of spells anytime, but I do like the day of Tuesday or Saturdays. These are days that relate to enemies and gives you a little bit extra power. Tuesdays and Saturdays, okay? So in this case, I'm using the color red. Red is a color that a lot of people believed, if you wrote many years ago, if you wrote in your blood, in the people's blood, it would be more effective. I don't have any blood, okay, of that person, but that's why I'm using the color red to represent their life force, okay? I do know that there are some places that sell the old ink quill pens that look like dove ink blood. You could use that if you choose to, but generally I would say red ink or paint which should work, okay? But really it's about mind focus. And I also want to emphasize the fact that there are times where it doesn't, these spells don't take right away. Now, my mind energy is, if I'm really mad, if I really, really hate somebody and I really, really want them, like I'll get into, deep focus and I can just crush them like not even a problem. There are times where you cast a spell and it takes a little bit of time for it to work. Sometimes it takes up to 2 weeks or whatever. And then of course, because they might be wearing protective spells that are allowing they might be wearing amulets that are protecting them to a certain degree. So you need to you just have to keep applying more and more negative magic to them, okay? And I'm somebody who believes in, if these people are really that hardwired to constantly want to battle you when you've done nothing wrong, then I'm going to keep sending and doing negative magic towards them until they stop and they become humbled or they die. It is that way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch slides. Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the plate. Now, this is a plate that I actually have for my own cupboard, right? And it looks like, the factory made a little bit of mistake in here because this is like a divot that they made in the plate. But this is like a version of, the blue and white type of reality that I'm talking about. Now, you'll notice that this plate, this is something I'm going to eat off of, so I'm not going to waste this plate. But you notice that it's a square plate. Now, there's a lot of, plates that you can get that are round. Most plates are round, okay? But you're trying to destroy their reality. And some people, when they think of the world, they think of the world as round, some people are into the flat earth thing or whatever, but however you visualize the earth. Now, if you go to the 99-cent store, the dollar store, and you're trying to do this spell, and the only thing that you like the color significance or the color symbolism, but you don't like, they only have like a square plate. Don't think that you can't use this because, the square can represent, the all four directions, the north, east, south, and west. So, these are just fine as well. Also, when it comes to the destruction of the plate, I think the day that you can make it, like, for example, design the plate any way you want. You can stick the picture on there. You can either write on there, draw on there, put a bunch of negative things on there, whatever, and you can save it for a while, and you can destroy the plate anytime. You can do it any day of the week, but I prefer to do things like, on certain days if I can, okay? I mean, I think it just adds a little bit extra energy. So I usually like the idea of Tuesdays and Saturdays for things that relate to destruction. And I do think that it's best that you do it away from your home. And there's been times in the past where I've done this and I just threw it against a tree. I know that there's been times where I've taken advantage of the barbecue grills at, like, the recreational parks or parks and recreation. If you want to, create a fire around the plate and then just kind of you want to destroy it, okay, basically. So if the element of fire adds a little bit more intensity to it, feel free to do that, okay? But what you're basically doing is you're destroying the plate and you're just walking away, okay? You can create your own words to this, or it could all be done in your mind. So let's just say, for example, I'm angry at a specific person and I have designed this plate, specifically for them. So I decide to get out of the house one Saturday evening on a full moon, okay? Which is really cool, right? So I decide to go to the park and I use one of the barbecue grills or whatever, and then I just torch, as the fire is like, high or whatever. Now, obviously you should be very careful about using fire receptacles in public places. I'm just giving you ideas. There are some times where if you can, break the plate around the vicinity of that person's property. Mind you, like I said, that's being very risky. You know what I mean? That's very, very risky. But we're talking about somebody who is consistently harming you. Now, I had no idea who, like, my main perps all the way down the line were until just recently, okay? So I have no, and I really would not waste my time driving all the way down there, right, to do that. But I'm just letting you know of different ways, or giving you ideas of different ways to destroy the plate. Once the plate is destroyed, you just walk away from it and you don't look back. It's as simple as that. So let's move on to the next spell. This spell is for destroying the livelihood of your enemy. Now, this is an actual spell that could be performed against an enemy specifically. And once again, this is the kind of spell that you want to perform if you are 100% innocent in this so-called argument, right? Okay, so the purpose, of course, is to destroy a person's well-being and their livelihood. The timing of this spell, it could be either waning or waxing. I do recall doing this spell several times many years ago, and doing it both times during the waxing and the waning of the moon. It is best to perform this outside, away from home. And the items that you'll need is either a ceramic or a glass plate to represent reality. And you can select the ideal color, and I will show you some examples in the next slide. Number 2, you will use a picture of your enemy or a name paper written by them. Now that is optional because when you're performing magic on another person, it is best to have a personal concern. And let me review what a personal concern is. It is something that is directly belongs to them. It could be maybe a sliver of their favorite pair of underwear that they have, and you just took like a small piece of it. It could be a slice of pieces of their hair. It could be their finger or toenails. It could be their saliva. It could be their semen. It could be their menstrual blood. Whatever it is comes from them, was on them, or whatever, something that directly connects them. Now, because I don't have anybody that I'm focusing on right now, I do not have any name papers or anything like that, but they can be used, okay? Those are options. In this example, I am showing how to use it just with mental work, okay? And then in this case, you'll be either writing the person's name and the things that you want to happen to their life with either a pencil, pens, markers, etc., or paint or whatever, okay? Okay, I just thought I would go ahead and show this one more time, just to let you know that you can create the plate anytime during the waxing or waning of the moon, but it is best to add extra power, for the plate to be destroyed either on Tuesday or Saturday. I thought I'd just go ahead and mention that one more time. Okay, on to the next one. This spell is for destroying the livelihood of your enemy. Now, this is an actual spell that could be performed against an enemy specifically. And once again, this is the kind of spell that you want to perform if you are 100% innocent in this so-called argument, right? Okay, so the purpose, of course, is to destroy a person's well-being and their livelihood. The timing of this spell, it could be either waning or waxing. I do recall doing this spell several times many years ago, and doing it both times during the waxing and the waning of the moon. It is best to perform this outside, away from home. And the items that you'll need is either a ceramic or a glass plate to represent reality. And you can select the ideal color, and I will show you some examples in the next slide. Number 2, you will use a picture of your enemy or a name paper written by them. Now that is optional because when you're performing magic on another person, it is best to have a personal concern. And let me review what a personal concern is. It is something that is directly belongs to them. It could be maybe a sliver of their favorite pair of underwear that they have, and you just took like a small piece of it. It could be a slice of a piece of pieces of their hair. It could be their finger or toenails. It could be their saliva. It could be their semen. It could be their menstrual blood. Whatever it is comes from them, was on them, or whatever. Something that directly connects them. Now, and because of I don't have like anybody that I'm focusing on right now, I do not have any name papers or anything like that, but they can be used, okay? Those are options. In this example, I am showing how to use it just with mental work, okay? And then in this case, you'll be either writing the person's name and the things that you want to happen to their life with either a pencil, pens, markers, etc., or paint or whatever, okay? Okay, I just thought I would go ahead and show this one more time, just to let you know that you can create the plate anytime during the waxing or waning of the moon, but it is best to add extra power, for the plate to be destroyed either on Tuesday or Saturday. I thought I'd just go ahead and mention that one more time. Okay, on to the next one. Okay, this spell is called Plague with Disease spell. The purpose is to plague an enemy with a degenerative disease. The timing, which should be, I would say, the waxing of the moon, and it is best to create this inside, and it will be removed outside at a later time. Now, I'm suggesting to purchase the sugar cookie dough that you get at like Pillsbury or some of the generic brands. And, just kind of lay out your cookie dough as usual. If you have a male or a female enemy, you could use a cookie cutter to represent that, okay? Also, what you're going to need is personal concerns of the enemy. You will definitely need personal concerns if you choose to do this spell. And like I said, personal concerns in this case, because you're using it with the cookie dough, you either want some locks of their hair, or maybe some fingernails. It could be their semen. It could be their toenails, however you obtain it, okay? Anyway, it would be also helpful to get some cake decorating items and some wax paper. So let me kind of go over the scenario of how all this would work. Now, you've often seen this kind of sugar cookie dough, usually during different holidays. Now, I know I've seen this during Christmas. I've seen these cookies, this cookie dough being sold, just about every holiday. The last one was like Valentine's Day, and I do believe they had like a Valentine's Day cookie, sugar cookie, whatever. Okay, so anyway, you could either make your own. You're more than welcome to make your own. Now, obviously, you only need to make one cookie for your enemy, or you might have more enemies and you want to use the whole container. Now, what I would usually do if I had like kids, and of course, when kids know that you have this cookie dough in the refrigerator, they're going to want you to make those cookies for them. So that's totally fine. This spell could be done any day, but chances are, if you work, you probably will do this on the weekend. All right, so you're going to prepare your cookie dough as usual, and you're going to cut out the shapes, and you can lay them all on the pan. Now you're going to extract one of those cookies to be the person that is set up for the degenerative disease. So you're going to use the cookie dough as it is. So you see how this little imprint of the cookie dough, the cookie print or the cookie cutter is inside, that is left in the imprint on this dough, for example. Okay, you're going to be using that. You're not going to cook this cookie. You're going to use it in the dough form, raw as it is, okay? Now, of course, you're going to cut around the edges, make sure that it's a cookie and it looks like the cookie, okay? And right now, it's still kind of stuck in the dough, and you would most likely take a knife and scrape off, the surrounding parts, so you just have that cookie. Okay, so we're going to have to use our imagination a little bit here because I haven't bought any sugar cookie dough or anything like that. But let's just pretend that, I'm a mother of a few kids, right? And it's like a day where I'm making sugar cookies, but I'm also wanting to curse this person that's creating all these problems for me, right? So after all the little cookies are on the dough, on the cookie tray, right? I pull out this one lone victim, right? That is going to get the degenerate disease, and I'm going to curse it, right? So I'm going to use wax paper to do that. So let's just say this is still in the dough form. It is not cooked. It is what it is, okay? And the good thing about like the cake decorating things is you can draw, facial expressions on the uncooked cookie. So let's just say, for example, I really hated this person. I'm going to make sure that their face is drawn, and that's going to display like horror and misery. Okay, so it could be like, I'm just going to go ahead and draw this really quick. And you can take advantage of the different kind of colors that they have. Like for example, if you want to draw the person or make it look as realistic or as close, because you can't really make it look totally like that person. It's a cookie, for God's sake, right? But let's just say, for example, the person has blonde hair or they have red hair. You're going to use those colors to try to make it resemble the person as much as possible. So in this case, if I had like, cake decorating tools, I would use, I would X out the eyes and put some mouth expression that looks, like it's in distress or something. And I would use the personal concerns directly on this cookie dough piece, right? Now, you can also use dye. Like I'm using what do you call it? A blue piece of paper, construction paper, to pretend it's like the cookie dough. If you wanted to, you could like kind of paint, dye color on whatever if you wanted to. Let's just say, for example, this person wore like blue jeans all the time. You could make blue jeans and then make them a little shirt if you wanted to. Be creative as if you want to. But the main thing that links this person to the cookie is their personal concerns. Now, if this is your spouse and you hate this person because they treat you like shit, you have more opportunities to get their personal concerns than anybody. Okay, like, I'm sure they might brush their hair. You can take their hair pieces out of their brushes. You could take, if they have any remnants of like their toenails, once they, some people just leave their toenails laying all over the place. Now, I don't, but I remember laughing at work with this one girl who told me that she would leave her toenail clippings on the floor and her baby would roll in it, and then she would have the little toenail clippings all over its body. I don't know why she thought that was funny, but I'm just letting you know there's ways that you can find these little articles, okay? But what you want to do is you want to, how to apply it is you might sprinkle the toenails or whatever, or the hair shavings onto the cookie. Pat it down, make sure, it's in there really good. It's in there really good. And then you're going to wrap it up in paper. And you can still continue to do different things with this. Like, I didn't add this as a requirement for the spell, but there are certain instances that, are available for extra cursing power. Like this one right here is called Black Magic. If you wanted to, you could burn some incense and put this little image, the little cookie in it before you actually take it outside. Now, how you're going to destroy this and give it the disease is you're going to go outside and find an active ant hole. And you can say an incantation if you want to. You can pray over the cookie and tell the cookie, that it's screwed or whatever. And as you're done, saying it, you toss this cookie dough into the ant hole and you walk away. And, the ant's going to go crazy all over the cookie and it's going to, eat it or whatever ants do with it. Okay. It's no longer your problem. You curse this person and you're hoping that they get a degenerate disease. Okay. And that's just another spell. So let's move on to the next one. This next spell is to destroy the mind of your enemy. What you'll need is, let's go back to the purpose. The purpose is to implant destructive thoughts into your enemy. The timing is best during the waxing of the moon. I would say the best day would be Wednesday in the middle of the night. Now, mind you, this could be done at any time. I'm just picking out special times that seem to be, aligned with these sort of energies specifically. But you could, you could take advantage of other times as well. Like I said, if to understand the timing of spells, take a look at the video that I created called the Divine Timetables. Okay, so anyway, this spell can be performed inside or outside. The items that you'll need scraps of paper, pens or pencils. Number 3 are unpleasant items. Number 4 are personal concerns. Okay, and I would say for this particular spell, personal concerns are important to have. That could either be like a name paper, pieces of their hair, fingernails, whatever you can get your hands on. Okay, number 5 would be cursing oils. Okay, that's optional, but I will go over the different kind of cursing oils. And then number 6, a skull-shaped jar. Now, I'm going to go over number 3 really quick, and then I will go over a couple of other ones to kind of give you an idea of what each item is. Okay, so in this spell, this is obviously a spell to assist in providing negative thoughts, implanting negative thoughts into your enemy. Now, like I said, all spells that I'm listing here or issuing out or talking about are spells that should be performed only if you are 100% innocent in this confrontation that you're dealing with, okay? So the first thing that I had listed was scraps of paper. This is to write out the negative thoughts. Like you could put things like, let's just say this person's name is Robert. Robert, I hate you. Robert, everybody hates you. Robert, your singing sucks. You just negative stuff that is going to make him hate himself. He already hates himself already. The reason why, he's your enemy and he's causing you all these problems and doing the things that they do is because they hate themselves, okay? But you're really trying to bring it home to let them understand that they're the ones with the problem, okay? So they're going to have to deal with everything that they put onto you. You're giving it right back to them. So the scraps of paper could be any color, okay? And just like the pens and the paper, it can be, whatever color. You can be creative with it. You could do it all black and white. You can use purple to show that you're exercising your authority over this person. You can use different colors to signify whatever it is that you want. Okay, so that explains that. The unpleasant items, that was number 3. Okay, unpleasant items are anything that you consider unpleasant, okay? Because this is the stuff that you're going to be putting into the skull jar, okay? So not only are you writing these negative thoughts and putting it in the skull jar, you're also adding, things like dead flies, dead bugs, feces, if you want to, whatever you can think of that is absolutely disgusting, rotten food, whatever it is, to put inside the jar of the skull jar is what you want to put. Because the same thing that they've caused you, or the same thing that they wished for you, is what you're giving right back to them, okay? So number 4, what did I put for number 4? Because I don't remember. Okay, personal concerns. Now this is why you want to mix all this nasty, disgusting stuff with something that is directly connected to them, okay? So if you can get a piece of their clothing, maybe like a small little piece of their clothing, or maybe some of their hair, like I said, fingernails, saliva, semen, vaginal fluids, urine, whatever that belongs to them is also going to go in there. That's a personal concern. If they wrote their name on a piece of paper, like a signature or something, that is exactly what it's called. It's a name paper. But the good thing about this name paper is it could be considered as a personal concern because they wrote their own name. Okay. What else? Cursing oils. So I want to talk about cursing oils a little bit, and those are optional. Okay. They just add to the misery inside the skull jar. Now, I'm sure back in the days when I was CB Braganza, I mixed my own oils, cursing oils. But, nowadays I'm in the modern day, right? And this is one of the reasons why I made my magic videos, because we are living in the modern day. And, unlike the good old days where I might have woken up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to pick out herbs in the field or whatever, now I can buy, cursing oils or whatever. So I don't have to do it all by myself, right? And I don't have to chart out astronomical lines or, planetary hours on my own, because we have things on the internet that do that stuff for you. Okay. So this is the cool stuff about practicing the occult in the modern day. Now, these are all considered cursing oils. They're very negative, and this is one of the reasons why I always wear gloves. Why? Because I do not want to have my fingers touching them. Okay. Now, cursing oils are usually made of unpleasant things. Okay. It could be the hair off of a suffering dog. It could be
You know, maybe it could be feces, but none of that, you know, is in here, thank goodness. Okay, but if you were making your own, you could use feces. You could use, you know, a urine from an animal that has been very sick. Whatever it is you want to use, okay, and you could use negative type plants. You know, like, you know, most plants that we think of that we want to bring into our home are vibrant and they're life affirming, okay. But you could put things like weeds and, you know, weeds that, like, you know, choke out your flowers and just do negative stuff into your own herbs. Now, this particular company that I like, two companies are my favorite. My favorite company of all, I would say, is I like Sunzai a lot. That's a company that I really like. And I also like artoftheroot.com. And I also like, what's the other company? I cannot think of the name of this company. But here's a few cursing oils, okay? And I'll tell you what they're good for. This one is just flat out called cursing oil. Okay, and that could be used for all kinds of things. It could just be like you want to fill their head with negative stuff, and this is just like a reinforcer of all the little scraps of paper that you're putting in the head. That's pretty good. Okay, this one's called chaos and confusion. Okay, you can mess up somebody's brain, let them confused, let them start forgetting stuff, whatever. Okay, you can screw up their mind. This is a really good one. It's called chaos and confusion. Okay, what else is there? This one is, this company is called Indio, okay? And this one is called Shut Up. Shut Up, right? If you feel as though this person's just getting a little too chatty, making up too many pathological lies or whatever, you can make them shut up. Okay, what else? Oh, this one's called Humiliation. This one's called Humiliation, and you can pour this into the jar as well. So these are some of the cursing oils that you can use, and you can also make them yourself. You know, you could find unpleasant items, okay, but you do want a base, okay, and typically you want to put them in some sort of glass jar. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of give you an example of the kind of weird ingredients that go into cursing oils, but you can purchase them, okay? And I will put the link of these companies in the description box, so just in case you decide to go ahead and try it. Now I'm going to take off these gloves really quick because, like I said, if I even touch my bottles of cursing oil, I wear gloves because I don't want one drop of it on my hands. And chances are, you know, in the past, actually, I have touched cursing oils before directly with my hands, but I just washed it. But still, I don't want that chance. Like, I really don't want to have to worry about, like, you know, any of that negative stuff on me. Now, you may have noticed that in the beginning of these videos, I was wearing longer sleeves. This is the exact same shirt, okay? And it's one of those fast fashion turtlenecks that are really cheap and flimsy. But the one that I was wearing earlier had long sleeves, and this one is short sleeves because I realized I had a stain on my shirt, so I changed shirts. And actually, it's a beautiful day today, and so the short sleeves worked out just fine. Okay, so what else? Okay, let me show you the skull-shaped jar. I got this at the 99-cent store when it was still opened, okay? And I use this as an extra. I have not used it for anything. I was actually going to use this to curse Rex Laverne, but I will show you the curse that I actually put on Rex Laverne. But I was going to use this. Now, I love this jar, okay? I really, really love this jar, okay? And I bought it specifically for, you know, me understanding that I was a victim of human trafficking. But so I didn't know exactly who my perps were. There were certain people that I have already gotten rid of, but this right here, I collect, you know, stuff that I might need. Just like I have extra Novena candles or whatever. If I'm going to like one of these like cheap little stores, like the 99-cent store, or the Dollar Tree or whatever during Halloween time, and I see stuff like this, I'm like, you know, might need to curse somebody someday, and I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. Now, when you're working with this, I did not put incense on the list for this, but you can use it. Feel free. I'm giving you guys an idea of what you could add in the jar, okay? You can also use things like incense, like, you know, when you're burning the incense, just kind of poke it into the jar to let the fumes get more into to the mind of your enemy. Now, I usually, before I would actually use this, I would cleanse it, okay? I would probably cleanse it with like holy water or something like that. And then what I would do is and I would not, if this is like a long running spell, like this is somebody that you just hate. So you could find some sort of room on your shelf or whatever and just keep adding scraps of paper as you feel like, as you feel free. Generally, when I have like a long standing type curses that I'm working on, like let's just say, for example, I made something similar to this, right? And I'm not going to destroy it, at least right away, but eventually one day I will. This is just letting me build up the hatred that this person's projecting on me, right? So every time I feel like I'm frustrated, I'm angry or whatever, then I could talk to this skull and then add more negative stuff into its head. Now, usually it's like thought to thought, link to link. What I say is what you think. And then I start like, putting saying things that I don't like, about them, and then I also start putting like negative thoughts into their head, right? And of course, it's great if you have like a cork or something. That's great too. Okay, just for as an example, I write like "I hate you" on a piece of paper, and like I said, you could use whatever color paper you want. You could use the color pins that you want. That's fine too. Okay. And then after you create that, do that for the day, you could just go ahead and burn a little incense in there, or you could throw some dead flies in there, or you can pour some, cursing oil or whatever. Now, the day that you could keep this for as long as you want to, and then you can just enjoy watching your enemy, become unhappy, become crazy, whatever. Okay, then there's going to get to a point where you just don't want this person around anymore. Okay, so you could take it to like a crossroad, or you could take it to somewhere, private, or like right in front of a train that's going by, and throw it onto the track and let it watch and like let it get disturbed. I mean, destroyed. And then, of course, the eventual death will follow eventually. Okay, sometimes it takes a while, but whatever. What you're doing is you're cursing this person. You're giving them all the hatred that they gave back to you. Now, you might be able to find a skull like this online, but like I said, I got this at the dollar store during Halloween, and like I said, I didn't have anyone specifically in mind when I wanted to curse people during. But people don't see things. I have an arsenal of supplies all the time. Okay, like I said, I have like white candles, blue candles, yellow candles, whatever. And I'm gonna there might be times where I'm like, I really want some inspiration, so I'll pull out an orange candle, right? And like I said, during the Halloween time, I know that I can get skull shaped things. I can get skull shaped candles. I can get skull shaped jars. And if you do not have a jar that is shaped like a skull, you can go ahead and use a regular jar. Okay, you can use that to represent their head if you want to. And there's times where you can actually get colored jars, or you can color them yourself. Okay, so let's go on to the next spell.
I'm going to call this spell the realization spell. The purpose is to make the person realize what they are and the harm that they cause. The timing can be done during the waxing or the waning of the moon. The items needed would be a small box, a picture of the person, a small mirror, and some glue.
Now, when it comes to picking out your box, this is going to be a part of your decoration, okay? At least it was for me. Like when I used this in the past, I would go to like the 99-cent store or the Dollar Tree and pick out a regular colored cardboard box. Now, I want to tell you about this box right here. This is just a regular cardboard box, brown on the outside as well as the inside. The only reason why it is blue is because I painted it blue, okay? And you can paint the box if you want to, because it's going to sit on a shelf, okay? You're going to have it sit on the shelf. I also purchased, and I mentioned this in one of my other videos, I purchased at the Dollar Tree some rub-on transfers. So I use this for, I hope you can see that. There we go. The little dandelions. Very cute, right? You can put whatever decoration on there if you want to. And if you want to, because you're using it for a spell specifically, to make a person come to the realization of what they are, what they've done, and let it sink in, okay? Because some people, it's very hard for that to penetrate, okay? So anyway, what you would do is you would get a small mirror, okay? Now you can get boxes smaller than this. The smaller the better, because you want to make sure you have room for it, okay? But in the past, what I would do is I would use like a compact mirror that comes into like your makeup pack. And so this, I don't know, maybe might be, how many inches is this? It's about 2.5 inches. Okay, 2.5 inches. So like a compact mirror, and you could also buy small mirrors at like the Dollar Tree. So the idea is you would take the mirror out of this, pry it off. Okay, you'd have to literally pry it off, and glue it to the top of this lid. Make sure that it would like face this way, like right, like it would be detached from the actual compact. Anyway, you would take a picture of the, not necessarily your enemy. Okay, it could just be the person. It could be maybe a spouse that you really wish you're tired of them like abusing you, and you don't want to necessarily end the relationship, but you do need them to understand the cause, the pain that they cause, or something like that. Okay, so in those cases, if people want to stay in those kind of relationships, that's their choice. Okay, but not everybody is doing this with like intense hatred. Just like the example that I gave earlier, of the aunt and the niece that were living together, and they really have a great relationship. It's just that they're not great roommates. Okay, same thing with this. Okay, so and you're, like I said, the color of the box, if you choose to color it, could signify that. Like it could be done in pink, it could be done in blue, it could be in a color that's rather emotional. Okay, if you have an enemy, you might want to do it black or whatever. However you want to do it, whatever mental connection. I'm just giving you an idea. But yeah, you can get either mirrors, small mirrors to glue, hot glue, or yeah, I would use hot glue. I'm going to put that on the list. Okay, hot glue on the top of this, I mean right here on the lid, and then you would glue the mirror on top. And then you would take the picture and put it upright with the face looking forward. So then you would tell the picture what it did. Like, basically saying, you've caused me, talk to the picture, how much you've caused the pain of this, and this, and when you did this. And a lot of times people show that they're completely indifferent to the suffering that they create for you. They just don't really get it. Okay, so this is like an active prayer explaining to a person that they need to understand, so that we can try to work on you not abusing me anymore. Okay, and so once you're done with that, you can just kind of close the box, and you can either keep it like on a shelf, or you could hide it away from whatever. But the point is that to have this person come to some sort of self-realization as they're looking at them. So constantly looking within themselves, inside themselves, whatever. And it can't be avoided because you have this connection. And if you feel like you want to seal the box or whatever, shut it closed, or close it shut, just sort of to add more power to the spell, feel free to do that.
This spell is called the self-destruct spell. The purpose is to make your enemy self-destruct. You can do this during the waxing or the waning of the moon. Now, this is just a simple drawing spell, so you can actually draw it inside and burn the picture outside. The items you'll need are paper, pens or pencils. Cursing oil is optional. Personal concerns would be great if you have them, but they are optional. You'll need an ashtray or some sort of receptacle, and you will also need a lighter.
Okay, so this spell is actually, I was inspired to create this spell based off of a particular tarot card. Now, this particular card, it's called the Nine of Swords. Okay, and I know I did a tarot lesson book, and it is a PDF. It's somewhere you can get it through my newsletter, my second quarter newsletter. I believe it's posted, whatever, and I will probably put the link in the description box as well. But anyway, this particular card, I received in my readings. I would say, there were times where I really didn't pick up my tarot cards or anything, but when I did use my tarot cards throughout the course of my targeting, this card popped up a lot. Okay, this is a card that signifies, constant worry, feeling as though you don't have a way out, just 100% misery day in and day out. Okay, so when you do any sort of like cursing, okay, the reason why you do it is because, number one, you're innocent, and you need to resend that energy right back to that person. So I'm going to call this energy, this card, the Nine of Sword energy, right? I had the Nine of Sword energy for the longest times, just going right back to not counting all the other years, but let's just say we're just counting going back to Murray Family Farms, going to fake job interviews, being abused as much as I possibly can, being discredited, being blacklisted, being shadow banned, having my work, being, what do you call it? Dismissed, being ostracized by evil, wicked people, the constant worry, 24 hours a day. This is who I was. So I felt as though Rex Laverne needed to have everything that I felt into him. So this card inspired me to create another drawing. Now that drawing is already gone because I used it for my ritual that I performed. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw it out for you. Now, I am not an artist. Everybody knows this, except for I know that this was a part of my targeting where people wanted to call me an artist because they wanted to discredit me, my intelligence, right? So they were feeling a little bit better, more comfortable giving me the artist thing, okay? I'm not an artist, okay? But I do like to use color, and I do see the importance of it in art, okay? So instead of me, drawing Rex Laverne, as like a whole body, I tend to focus on the head. Okay, just like I do the spell jar, it's a representation of the skull. A skull is quite enough. You destroy the head, you destroy the body. Everything else is whatever. So you can use different color papers. Like for example, let's just say, I wanted to really exercise control. I might use like maybe a purple paper or whatever. In this case, I think it's better for me to just draw on a regular white piece of paper. And you can also use black paper if you have white pen. You use your creativity and imagination on how you want to draw the skull. But I'm going to use one of these papers because it's big enough to see. Now, when I did the spell, the piece of paper that I used was probably maybe like by like the size of an index card. That was pretty much the size of it. So it was pretty small. Okay, but I want to make it big enough for you to see. So we have the skull here. So I'm just going to draw a skull. Like this. And that's pretty good. That's the shape of that is not too bad, right? I mean, hopefully you can see that. Can you see? Okay, now you can see it a little bit better. Let me see if I got a better pen. So, and this right here, if you were to use personal concerns on this, it would be kind of hard to do that. So you might want to use a glue. And the only reason why I say don't use tape when you burn something, that is a personal concern. I mean, that it has personal concerns attached to it, is because the biggest problem with it is sometimes the tape does not burn, with everything. And the whole goal is you want to completely demolish and destroy this person. So you want to make sure that you don't have any tape or anything like that. You want to make sure that you don't use things like crayon, because crayon is like a wax, and sometimes it doesn't burn quite the way that you want it to. Now that pen that I was using, I don't think it really showed up very well. But here's the shape of the skull, okay? And obviously you can tell I do not have a whole lot of artistic experience, because it's not perfect. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, it does not have to be perfect. Okay, so obviously this is going to be a very painful thing for a Rex. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the eyes, and I'm going to block them out. Like this. And you want to make sure, like, the skull looks like, it's kind of terrified. I'm going to do the best I can. Here's his nose, right? This is where the nose would be. And you want to make it look like he's saying, like, oh, shit! That look on his face. So let's try to do the best we can like that. How's that? Okay. Now, I like the way that the swords were inside of the person, like behind the bed, right? Because it really emphasized the misery and the pain that this person was going through, which is exactly how I felt. This person inflicted this kind of pain on me all the time. every chance they got. They loved instilling fear, worry, paranoia, depression, anything you can think of. So I'm using all of that, 9 of those, right, to represent each sword. Okay. So let's just say, for example, this is the handle, right? And here's the end of it, like the sword part. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's little sharp knife parts. Okay. Like I said, I am not. And here's another one. So we're going to do 4 on each side, right? So here's the knife part. Here's the handle. And the knife part. The handle. The knife part. The handle. The knife part. So that's 8 altogether. Now, I could write out each one. Like, for example, I could put pain on this one. He caused pain. Psychological pain. I can also make him feel humiliation for what he did, right? I can also make it so that he experiences fear. Of course, depression, isolation, and I can also say that I'm putting this on the handles, okay, of it. So it's like I'm putting it into his head. Each one, it's getting my revenge, okay? And then, like, I don't know what else you could put, like control, anger, whatever, anything negative, right? Okay. And you can also, um, um, whatever, all the things that you want to represent, okay? Just 8 of them, okay? Because this one's going to be a little bit different than the last one. You can also be creative if you want to, like, each of these things, like pain, to me, that's a color that would be represented by black. Humiliation might be another color, so on and so forth. So you can do them all black, you can do them all brown, you can, you could change, the humiliation could be red if you want to intensify it. Like, if you want to intensify, what humiliation, that's a very powerful, thing to deal with. So we can paint that handle red, whatever. Fear, you can make that one like, I'm going to color it brown or orange or whatever color. And you can do them all that way, right? Also, you want to make sure that you enjoy destroying this person. So, you can add some like tears and blood coming out of their mouth and their eyes, and it could be dripping out. And then you can listen to a lot of music to intensify your anger, your fear, your hurt, your depression, all the intense feelings that this person put on you. You are putting it right back into this art, right? So the one that the main one though, the main sword is the sword of justice, which goes right on top of his head, right? And I'm going to make that purple because it's like, almost like a heavenly type thing from a heavenly authority, and it's the sword part is going to come out of this part of the head. So here's the handle and here's that, right? So if you had personal concerns, like let's just say, for example, I had like, nail clippings of this loser, right? Which I don't. I've never been in any proximity of him that close to have anything. But if I did, I would not use like Scotch tape or something to do that. I would probably get like a little small pieces of glue or something and like sprinkle it here, but make sure the glue is flammable because you want to destroy this thing like completely. Okay. You can also, if you want to take this outside, you can put some gloves on, pour some cursing oil on it as well, and then throw it into like a barbecue grill. Like I said, my original one of this was a lot smaller. Okay, so it was like the size of an index card, and I threw it into like a small receptacle that I could do in my bedroom. But you want to listen to music that is repetitive in beats. For some people, like I said, some people like heavy metal music for that sort of thing. Some people like just like repetitive type drumming or whatever to work yourself up into this anger. You can also burn incense in the background to get more of that intense feeling, like something like dragon's blood or something, whatever. But you should get excited about this. Okay, you should be very excited to get your justice. All right. Also, in my visualization, I don't remember exactly what night it was that this took him out, but I was visualizing and this is what my visualization was. It was like he was under surveillance or something, like other people could see him. And it was an extremely exciting thing for them to see this man get worked up, coming to the realization. I had this visualization that he was watching my last videos, okay? Like that my videos just like set him off or something. And I was, visualizing him getting really upset, coming to the realization that he was screwed. Everybody knew who he was doing, what he did. Everybody knew that what he was doing, what he did, and all the whole entire thing. There was no way that he could get out of it. So he finally just like ends himself, right? And of course, the blood and all this other stuff. Now, I am not a gore person at all, but I hated this man so much that would make me completely happy. I wanted him gone. Period. Okay. So that was the end of that. And I burned this and after I burned it, you want to go outside somewhere and take the ashes. If you're not doing it outside, okay, you might be outside in your backyard. You want to take those ashes when they're like, the smolder is not like, all smoky and you can't like pick it up or whatever. You want to like go ahead and set it out so the wind can carry it away. Okay. Or if you want to, you can bury it if you want. Okay. Some people bury it, close to the property of a person if they don't like them. I don't waste my time doing that. But those are just some of the ways that you can dispose of it. Now, I know that sometimes this sounds very shocking to people that I would actually do something like this. But like I said, there are times where we don't have the ability to get the justice that we deserve through the court system because people are working, in illegal manners, in illegal ways and manipulating things behind the scenes. And this is the way that we do it. Now, I understand that I was persecuted because people didn't like my views or whatever. And it's your choice. You don't have to accept my views. Okay. But for people who are, able to think for themselves and who choose to, find alternative ways to pray, because I really do believe that spell work is the way to pray. We talk about, it's more like an active way of praying. Okay, we have our regular prayers or whatever, but sometimes we need to create and set the wheels in motion for certain things. And most of the time, the things that I like to do and focus on are positive things. Okay, but I've dealt with a lot of negative people where they put me in a situation where I felt completely helpless. Okay, and so the only thing you can do is wish that something will happen to them. Now, I'm going to also follow up about this video and let you know that, like, sometimes things don't always happen right away. And, what I do is if I have an enemy and I am committed, knowing that they've caused me so much pain, I am committed to doing every action that requires me to dispose of something or whatever. I'm going to use that opportunity to direct that towards them. Okay. So, like, let's just say, for example, I blow my nose, right? I blow my nose, and then after I blow my nose, I'm going to throw it away. As I'm throwing it away, I'm visualizing throwing this person away from society, away from me, away. I'm disposing of them. Okay. Now, I know this sounds really disgusting, but if you really want to, constantly, jab it and stick it to your enemy, which is the only option that you really have at times, there's other things you can do, like that you can use as a visualizations of, removing this person, as also getting your little bit of revenge digs. Okay. Like, I know this sounds gross, but you have toilet paper, right? You can write their name on your toilet paper and then you can wipe your ass with it. Okay. Do things that are constantly going to, give them that negative energy. Send them negative energy every chance you get. As a matter of fact, once I realize that I do not like a person, I no longer think of them by their first name. Now, I will address them as their first name if I'm in a professional setting and I have no other choice. But like in my thoughts, in my mind, I might refer to them as dead man walking, some other sort of degrading or humiliating or weird name that is going to ultimately add to their destruction. I do not show any respect to anyone who disregards me or disrespects me. And because I am a woman who is all by themselves, sometimes that is the only defense I have. So I will say that, magic is something that can be used toward being destructive, but make sure that you have absolutely no hand in it. So the important thing is to remember that this is for your defense. It has nothing to do with one-upmanship. It has nothing to do with competition. It is for your own protection. So I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be back with more videos as we move forward. But this is a part of the second quarter newsletter, and we're going to continue, I'm going to continue making these newsletters for as long as I can. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.
Don't forget to check the description box for the Divine Timetables and other magical lessons. Thank you for watching.